All right, we got breaking news. Bryce Underwood has flipped from LSU to Michigan. We're going to break down all the implications, and we might have some inside information. Campus to Canton is live right now. It's Felix Sharp, Austin Nace, and Matt Bruning for CampusToCanton.com. Hopefully we get some new visitors to the YouTube page today. If you don't know what it is that we're doing, we're pushing college fantasy football. In this case, the Campus to Canton format that incorporates both college and NFL players. Why are we tuning in today? Because we got breaking news. The number one overall pick in next year's freshman drafts coming up here soon, Bryce Young, has flipped from LSU to Michigan. We heard the rumblings here. Now it's actually happening. We were supposed to go live to do a watch along for NC State, Georgia Tech. They got bumped just a little bit. Matt, what was your reaction when you heard the news?
I mean, I'm completely stunned, if I'm going to be honest. I mean, Bryce Underwood is, and I said it in the video I just did for the website, arguably the best quarterback I've graded over the past couple classes, and Michigan was not the place I would have expected to flip to. I mean, you've mentioned it how many times over the past couple years. How many players have they had that have been that maybe not as talented as Bryce Underwood, but extremely talented? Dante Moore. There's others that are escaping my mind at the moment, but that were right there in Michigan's backyard, and they could not make it happen. And then they do it for, in my opinion, the best of them in Bryce Underwood. I mean, it changes the landscape for Michigan right off the bat. Like I said, Jaden Davis is gone. He's gone. Everybody in that quarterback room is gone. Bryce Underwood starting day one. Now, can Sharon Moore and that coaching staff recruit the weapons around him? Can they continue to improve that offensive line? And all of a sudden, Michigan becomes a legitimate national championship contender next season just because they added this kid at quarterback. I think he's that good. I said in the video, as a Buckeyes fan, like, I'm excited, and I'm also extremely sad that I have to watch this guy go against us now for the next 3 years. Like, it's gonna be so much fun to see what he's able to do. And it's great because that is his hometown team. If anybody watched the video on Instagram, he posted a video of him saying he wanted to play for Michigan as a kid. So to get to kind of realize your own dreams, like on just that side of things, it's amazing. I mean, I can't wait. I can't wait to see this happen.
Not to be the cynic of the group, but I mean, he's just going there because he got a little bit of extra cash in his pocket, right? There's no other reason for him to really make that move. I mean, I think unless other, I don't want to say promises have been made, but other, kind of stars have already been, kind of set up to align here for them in terms of other recruits coming along with him. Quite frankly, I think Michigan has to just get rid of their offense coordinator. He stinks. Unless you've made other kind of arrangements already, I don't see why an extra, $1 million, $1.5 million at this juncture really moves the needle for a guy like Bryce Underwood. So it is a very interesting move. I mean, I just don't think much of Michigan's coaching staff right now at all. I'm really interested to see if they can get the best out of him, the best out of whatever they bring in with him. At this point, how many guys are willing to flip to go with him. It's going to be very interesting to watch the next couple days, couple weeks. And now Felix is muted. Man.
I have some information on this from a source that I would trust about what's going on there. When the number was like 10 million was thrown out there, it was like, it's not 10 million. The quote is his grandchildren are going to be fine. That's the quote. And it's not just cash, according to this source. It's equity in certain companies of Michigan alumni, like stock. It's property. It's all of those things. It is a life-changing deal. So, Austin, when you say it's not a couple, from what I don't know what LSU offered, but it's north of 10 million, the total package, and it's going to change his entire, family tree. And good for college football because, what's 20 million to Michigan? What's their endowment? probably like $1 billion. College football is now the league, the sports league that most closely identifies or most closely resembles American ideals. There's no salary cap, and we've had a lot of discussions about this now. Let's say that number is close to 20 million. What was Caleb Williams' contract with the Bears? I mean, this is good for college football, and these players should be commanding packages. Somebody like Bryce Underwood or Dylan Raiola or DJ Lagway, they should be commanding that much money for these schools. I think that it's a great thing for college football, but Austin, I don't think it's a couple million. I think it's substantial. I think that we're never going to know the number. We heard Nico was 8 million. I would guess that Bryce, based on what I heard, that it's between 15 and 20. The other thing that I've heard is that he has a long-standing financial advisor advising him, someone who's been around for, and I may have misheard this correctly, but someone who was around for like the Fab Five and like advised Dante Moore. Now, obviously, Dante Moore didn't go to Michigan, but it sounds like it's somebody in that area that's well established. Because when you're talking about that many assets, you need to get trusts involved. Property doesn't need to be in names. I mean, you're talking about a whole nother like 1% level of athleticism. He's going to have a lot of pressure on him. But I mean, he was the number one overall player in the class, and he was going to have that anyway. Austin, are you going to believe in this offense?
Not with this current staff as it is constructed right now in place. And I guess their OC is also their quarterback coach. I mean, I think you're calling him up tonight and saying, sorry, buddy, you're taking one for the team here. Because no, I don't think much of Sharon Moore at all, quite frankly. I think a lot of what's happened good for Michigan over the past few years has been you can put firmly on Harbaugh's shoulders. And as soon as he left out the door, I think pretty much all of that went with him. So it'll be really interesting to see what they plan to do here. So I really don't know. I don't know how you could break him in there and after this year that you've had and say, well, the staff is fine. Like, we're not going to change anything. Again, 2 for 2.
It's because I'm trying to watch the game at the same time. For those tuning into us for the first time, you may not know what a Campus to Canton league, but it's a fantasy football league, and every single year on the college side of your league, you have a freshman draft. So with this last class, Dylan Raiola, who's the quarterback at Florida?
DJ
Lagway, Kyron Lacey at Missouri. Any of the freshmen were available to be selected. And so now when we go here to 2025, there will be a freshman draft. Bryce Underwood, Kamario Taylor, Julian Lewis, who was just flipped to Colorado. All those players will be eligible to be drafted. Husan Longstreet. Matt, is Bryce Underwood going to Michigan? Michigan, even with J.J. McCarthy, was not great at developing the quarterback position. Yeah. Is he still the consensus 101 in your opinion?
Yeah, that hasn't changed for me. I mean, I don't disagree with some of the things Austin is saying about the coaching staff, but if we're talking from a fantasy perspective, sure, I don't think J.J. McCarthy was ever really startable that I can think of off the top of my head. No. And what did he really have throughout his time there? Did he have anything? I mean, I think the
best line in the country. I mean,
well, yeah, but I mean, like weapons wise, like I'm trying to think.
Colston Loveland, those are the two best, probably.
Loveland will be good. That's what I was trying to think. It was like Loveland will definitely be gone. I doubt he stays for another year. He probably goes to the NFL. So, like I said in the video, he's not going to have any weapons around him. Austin mentioned it. Can they make any flips now? I mean, now there's all of a sudden looks like USC might lose their top-rated offensive tackle. Who might be following Julian Lewis to Colorado. Typically, when this happens, we see other players flip as well to go join and play with somebody. So, will anybody flip with him? And I don't hate Andrew Marsh, who's the top-rated wide receiver they have in the class. Like, he's not a game-changing wide receiver prospect, but I think he can be better than what they have on their roster currently. And then adding a guy like Bryce Underwood, throwing him the ball could help with things. I think Underwood's ability to run the ball gives him some added upside on the fantasy side of things. I mentioned in the video, again, we say what we want about J.J. McCarthy. We saw him go in the first round, and Bryce Underwood is infinitely more talented than J.J. McCarthy. And so, like, I think if you truly believe in the player, which I do, he to me seems like a guy who rising tide raises all ships, right? Like, I think he can be good and maybe be better than the limitations he currently faces with that coaching staff. They're definitely, I agree with Austin, need to make some changes, but I think even going in there, you're betting on so much future upside with Bryce Underwood. Like, I think he's got to be, I don't know what quarterback you're taking over him. If you, this is not a Dylan Raiola, DJ Lagway situation, in my opinion. I think Bryce Underwood is the clear best quarterback in this class. I've said before, I have 3 tier 1 quarterbacks in this class, but I don't think I love Taven St. Clair's going to Ohio State. I love Ohio State. I would not take Taven St. Clair over Bryce Underwood if I'm sitting with the 1. In fact, there's a league the 3 of us are in. I have the 1-1. I'm not taking anybody but Bryce Underwood. Like, I'm taking Bryce Underwood. That is who I'm taking.
It's just a terrible landing spot. You mentioned, potential weapons. Austin, let me ask you this, because some names that I heard, could potentially follow Bryce Underwood, wide receivers Derek Meadows and Quincy Porter. You have thoughts on either of those two?
Yeah, it's 2 interesting ones. Meadows is currently committed to LSU, and I don't know if they've necessarily seemed like a package deal, but it seemed like those two did influence each other in terms of where they're going to go. Meadows goes to Bishop Gorman High School. He's the 3rd leading receiver on Bishop Gorman. He's played every game this year. He's not very good, in my opinion. He's like 6'5", like he doesn't move all that great. You just got to be really concerned for a guy that like can't even lead his own high school team. They threw for like 2,600 yards this year, and he has like 450. Like for a player that you would expect to be that caliber of a player, you want to see some more market share commanded there for him. I'm really not a huge fan of him. Quincy Porter's an interesting one because he's another guy. He's taller. He's kind of a bigger body, traditional boundary receiver. I'm not a huge fan of him, but it sounds like the Ohio State folks, which is where he's currently committed, love him. Matt, is that what you've heard as well? Which I just thought was so, and he is the highest rated receiver they have in the class here. What are they going to say? He stinks, but he's what we got. But I don't think either of these guys are like game changing type of receivers there for them. They're not flipping, DeCorian Moore or, one of the Texas kids that's going there. Like those would be like the interesting names to me. It doesn't sound like any of them are in play.
I mean, I don't think DeCorian Moore would flip because no. if we're looking at this from like a just overall perspective of what he can do at Oregon, Nike will pay him too. So like, I don't think Michigan. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they're able to flip one of the Texas kids. Obviously, if they're able to flip Quincy Porter, I mean that's a double hit right there. You're flipping. I mean, I was trying to pull it up. He's rated highly for 24/7 Sports, but I don't know if every service has him high. I was trying to pull it because I know On3 does the what's it called the whatever. We'll get to it in a minute.
Thing, the NIL valuation.
No, they have like they have the list of every recruiting service has them, so you can compare the industry comparison. That's what it's called. But then obviously Ohio State loses because Austin's right. From everything I've heard from the people I talked to at Ohio State, they think he's like a day one contributor at Ohio State. They love Quincy Porter. So you're talking about if you flip him, not only is that a get for Michigan, but then you just took him from your rival, a guy that they really want. So that would be kind of the one, I guess, to watch right now. So, I mean, he is top. The lowest ranking is Rivals has him as wide receiver 20. 24/7 Sports has him as wide receiver 14. ESPN has him at 9. On3 has Quincy Porter at 2. And Austin, I know you've talked about like On3 seems to be kind of like we stick to our process, and they've nailed some of these players over the past couple of years. They seem to be really high on Quincy Porter. So, I mean, yeah, I would expect we're 2 weeks away at this point, or a little less than 2 weeks away from National Signing Day. I would expect we're going to see some pretty big flips going Michigan's way now with Bryce Underwood going over there.
Austin, Bryce Underwood or Nico Iamaleava?
Oh, Underwood, even with the new landing spot.
Dylan Raiola or Nico Iamaleava or Bryce Underwood, excuse me.
Underwood again, regardless of landing spot. Yeah.
How high? So Underwood's going to be in your top, what, 5?
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I have to think on it now, and I don't want to be too reactionary, but I do think that Keelan Russell, the Alabama kid, has a claim for for quarterback 1 in this class with the landing spot change. And I think we don't want to overreact to a landing spot, but it matters quite a bit for a lot of these guys. What coaching staff you're attached to, the guys you have around you. Russell going there to Bama, Kalen DeBoer. Alabama doesn't have a great group coming in this year at wide receiver, but I'm sure that they have. I would be willing to bet on them bringing in better guys over the next couple of years than Michigan probably. So it's going to be interesting, right around top 5. But I do think Russell now. Matt, you were talking earlier. I think Russell has. I would at least think about it if I had a top overall pick. If I had a couple of them, then it wouldn't just be Underwood across the board for me. I would probably sprinkle in some Russell.
I wouldn't. I get the argument, and I'll just go behind the scenes on this one. I feel like we've had this argument over multiple players over the past couple of years, and then we just keep getting proven wrong by that. How many times have we been like, I don't want these Georgia running backs because the Georgia running backs room, and then Nate Frazier, whether it's due to injury or whatever, goes out there and does what he does. And it's all of a sudden, well, we didn't like him because he was going to a loaded Georgia room. We've had that conversation about other quarterbacks. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head who,
Caden Durham.
Yeah.
It was
going to LSU. I don't know that
he was also like 185 pounds listed out of high school. I don't know if there was the depth chart concern there for sure.
What I'll say is last year we didn't let it affect us as much in the guide. Like a name that pops up on my head, Sam Levitt. We didn't really drop him much, even though most of the recruiting team hated him going to Michigan State. Now look at him because he ended with we don't know what's going to happen right now. So for me, I'm going to base it solely on talent. Now, the one thing with Keelan Russell is he's had a much better senior year. I think you talked about this on Campus Life recently. He kind of struggled specifically with accuracy before this year and has had a really good senior year. I have not regraded him on that part, so he's still in my tier 2. He is not in tier 1 at the moment. I don't know if he's tier 1 for you currently, Austin, but he is. Okay, so maybe that will change my mind on that part. But for me, I'm just betting on the top because what happens if Sharon Moore, whether he is forced to do this or just goes and does this, brings in a Will Stein type offensive coordinator for the offense, and all of a sudden everybody who passed on Bryce Underwood for a Taven St. Clair or a Longstreet or a Deuce Knight because they're going to a more offensive friendly team, all of a sudden it's why didn't I just take the better player? So for right now, I don't see the reason. I guess the good news is for us, we've got a long time before freshman supplemental drafts kick off. So we'll have time to kind of see that news break and whatnot. But I think that being too worried about the landing spot is I know you're not saying you're over going to drop him to 3 or something, but it just doesn't matter to me, to be honest. I just think he's that talented of a player. It doesn't matter.
Austin, I feel like this is the question. How do you trust Michigan to get Bryce Underwood to a ceiling?
If he gets there, I would attribute very little of it to Michigan as they are currently constructed today. We'll put it that way. Matt?
No, that's fair. I don't disagree with that. But again, I'm going to bet on the player. But yeah, I would, with its way it's currently constructed, with the way Austin worded that, I would agree with him.
It's Felix Sharp, Austin Nason, Matt Bruning for CampusToCan.com. We were discussing the breaking news that Bryce Underwood from Belleville High School in Michigan has flipped from LSU to Michigan, staying home at Michigan over the past couple of months. We've kind of lambasted Michigan because this would have been the second 5-star quarterback in a row that Michigan would not have got. What did they have to do to go get him? It's a package. It's a package that includes cash, that includes property, that includes equity, stocks. They really had to go after this guy. And quite frankly, it would take a offer that you cannot refuse to get Bryce Underwood to Michigan because their track record has just been shaky with their 5-star players. Whether it be, let's go back to Kevin Grady. Let's go to Kelly. Let's go even further back. You guys don't even remember Kelly Baraka coming out of Portage Northern. These are in-house guys, in-state guys. Nico Collins, J.J. McCarthy. Yeah, he was a top NFL draft pick, but I don't know that J.J. McCarthy reached his ceiling with Michigan. So let's see if they can get the most out of Bryce Underwood. Is there any other angle to cover here, Matt? Or you want to talk about the LSU side of things?
Yeah, I mean, this is a massive loss for LSU, right? I mean, we were talking, does Garrett Nussmeier come back for one more year and give Bryce Underwood, CJ Bailey just flipped the ball. Wow. You're muted, by the way, Felix. Wow. Anyway, sorry. If you're watching the game, Georgia Tech just got a very nice defensive touchdown. I mean, we were talking maybe Garrett Nussmeier comes back for one more year after kind of, sliding backwards a little bit over these past couple of weeks, give Bryce Underwood 1 year, and then all of a sudden playing for 2. Now I think not only do you have to be worried about if Nussmeier just decides to go to the NFL, but what does this say about were me and Austin right on Brian Kelly? We were just early because, LSU's won games. Don't get me wrong. They haven't fallen flat on their face, but they have not at all succeeded in the way I think people expected. We thought all this talk about Brian Kelly was going to go into LSU and they're going to be a recruiting powerhouse every single year because he was limited to what Notre Dame could do, and he's not been able to really bring in those high-end classes. He just lost the number 1 quarterback and number 1 player in the class. And I don't think they're in, Austin, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think they're in on any other quarterbacks right now. So what do they do? If Nuss leads, what do they lean on? AJ Swan or Colin Hurley? Or Ricky Collins did play, and he was a player I actually liked. He's played this year. I think LSU's in a lot of trouble now all of a sudden.
Yeah, I agree. And again, I know you can say this all you want, but you're running out of time to flip players, and any of the players that maybe you could have flipped have already done so. I know these guys can flip as many times as they want, but you can't now go knock on Julian Lewis's door and say hey, do you want to come to LSU? You can't go knock on Hussein Longstreet's door and say, hey, do you want to come here? So many of these guys are already either entrenched or have already made a switch and kind of made that secondary decision. There just aren't a lot of guys left in this class. I mean, you have to go further down to a player that probably is comparable to Ricky Collins, or I don't know that you're upgrading your quarterback room there at all with whatever player you bring in. So it's going to be interesting. And they don't really have the wide receiver room there is kind of thin. Meadows is really the only guy they're bringing in this year at the position. They've got a couple of pretty good running backs on the way, but they don't really have a great tight end prospect in this class. It's thinning out there pretty quickly at some of these positions. They're swinging and missing a little bit.
Well, LSU has been active in the transfer portal, at least at the wide receiver position. C.J. Daniels, Aaron Anderson, Kyron Lacey was a transfer from Louisiana, so they could still get in the transfer portal. But I think when you think of LSU, you think of them bringing in talent organically from high school recruiting freshmen. I think you got to pay. You got to internally recruit Garrett Nussmeier to come back, and then try to get a weapon for him so they can have an explosive season next season to maybe recruit whoever the 2026 quarterback one is. But I don't know. I mean, I think that they have to internally recruit Garrett Nussmeier and then develop. Caden Durham, Mason Taylor's still going to be around. They're going to be fine next year even without Underwood. No.
I mean, do they just go straight after Carter Smith? That he's what was it? He was between Michigan and Wisconsin, right? He's from Florida. Obviously, I don't think he's going to commit to Michigan now with Bryce Underwood flipping there. Do they just go after Carter Smith?
I mean, the rumor is that Carter Smith's going to go to FSU, but Carter Smith is essentially just new Brock Glenn. I don't know why FSU would want him. I don't really know why any major Power 4 program would be you can't go in next team this is the guy that we're throwing all the chips in on.
I was just trying to look for top uncommitted quarterbacks, and he's the top uncommitted one currently. I mean, I don't know. And I don't even know who that, if you're looking at just the top guys that maybe you can flip, maybe Malik Washington, but he's from that area. So I don't think he flips from Maryland. So I just don't know who you're flipping. And again, maybe wrong. Ricky, like I said, Ricky Collins played this year. He was a guy that we actually liked. He's a dual threat quarterback. He reminded me a lot of Jaden Daniels, and obviously they had Mike Denbrock at the time, so I felt like really fit that system. Denbrock's no longer there. Maybe Ricky Collins is able to come in and give them a little bit of spark because, again, he does bring some rushing upside, can play out of the pocket a little bit more like Jaden Daniels could compared to Garrett Nussmeier. But, again, I just think this is what does this drop their class to, losing Bryce Underwood?
I don't know yet. Well, I think they've updated it on 24/7. It looks like they're the 6th overall class now. Like there's some strength. They bring in a bunch of corners this year. Like it's just not stuff that for our purposes is really helping us at all, quite frankly. So it'd be interesting to see. And just to put like just total speculation. There's no information at all behind any of this. I think just to highlight some quarterbacks who like you would probably think like that maybe we try to go for this guy. Jaron Kewi Sega Polatule. I'm so sorry. I did say that wrong. I need to figure out how to say that. There's been some rumors that maybe he's looking around a little bit or that some schools have contacted him. We'll see if that's the case. Nico Iamali, his brother, Madden, is at UCLA. They don't care. They don't mind. They're West Coast kids, but apparently they don't care going to the SEC, if the money's right and everything. So that could be a guy that maybe you pick up the phone and call. And then the only other one that I think, like I'm just looking at the top here, well, Ryan Montgomery, but he suffered a bad season-ending injury, so I'm not sure anybody wants him right now. And then Matt Zollers is the only other one. It seems like he's not that sold on Mizzou necessarily. He's taken some visits to Penn State. So that might be the only other guy that I think you can really call that's a top player in this class and try to get him to flip. So it's not a lot of names out there at this point.
And I guess I should apologize to Brian Kelly really quick. I said he hasn't done a good job recruiting. He's had a top 10 class the past 2 years. So I guess I should take that back. He had 9 and 6. 9 and what was the last one? I'm sorry. 9 and 5. Again, all of that mostly defensive players, but he's had 2 top 10 classes. So I guess I was wrong on his recruiting. And I don't feel like done much on the offensive side of things. He's not doing that again in this class, which is bringing in Meadows, but he is getting top classes. So
Brian Kelly getting his start just about 3 hours away from Bryce Underwood at Grand Valley State University in Allendale, Michigan. Drop a comment. Bryce Underwood to Michigan. Is Michigan going to be able to get the most out of Bryce Underwood? Michigan fans there in Ann Arbor, across the country, are you excited? Is there any other angle? Can we, we obviously were going to go live because we wanted to kind of discuss this NC State Georgia Tech game. Can we move on? Can we transfer? Can we shift to that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't know what else there's to talk about. So
we're here in the first quarter, 7:15 left. CJ Bailey's 1 for 5. He's fumbled and led to a defensive touchdown. But Matt, CJ Bailey starting as a freshman, we didn't realize that he was going to start because obviously they had Grayson McCall there. But he, outside of the last 2 games, he's played really well as a freshman.
Yeah, he has. And I mean, we talked obviously on the show last night, Campus Canton Live, you had him in your top 12 quarterbacks. I said I probably should have had him in there. I left him out for some of the freshmen. I mean, obviously he's not started off this game great today, but overall has been extremely impressive down the stretch. And I actually thought he played pretty good in that way. He played Clemson in his first game this year, right? And I actually don't think he played that bad in that game against arguably what you would say is one of the better defenses in the AAC. I mean, that wasn't a horrible throw right there, defensive holding on the wide receiver. I mean, I think he's played well. Some of that, I think, is also due to the Robert and Nye offense. He does seem to typically get the best out of his quarterback. So I'm excited to see maybe how those two can grow over the next couple of years and see what happens. By the way, as Austin jumps off, we just had another flip. I don't know that it's a big one, but Kevin Sperry just flipped from Oklahoma to Florida State. So quarterback. So that's I guess we're gonna be getting a lot of flips here over the next couple days.
It's November,
weeks,
it's December. This is the active time in college football recruiting.
What makes that even more interesting is I'm almost positive that first week of December is also the first week of the playoffs. So I'm curious to see what the last couple of years we've had a lot of that chaos and they call it the flip miss right around National Signing Day because of that. I wonder if this is going to be the new norm where it's like a week or two before that, because those coaching staffs and everything are getting ready for Michigan and Florida State aren't, or Oklahoma, the three, or LSU, really. All these teams that we're talking about currently are not, but a lot of these other schools are like getting ready for possible playoffs and bowl games and everything. So it's going to be interesting. But yeah, I mean, I think Bailey's going to be an intriguing. I think he's probably, depending on where everybody else at the website ranks him, I would say at worst going to be a top 15 quarterback for us going into 2025. So, I mean, he's got everything ahead of him and was a guy you could, I mean, we were talking about him here at the website a bunch. It's like, hey, this is a guy you need to target in your freshman supplemental drafts. But I know there was a couple of leagues he was still sitting on the waiver wire to start the season.
Yeah.
He
was sitting on waivers in a lot of my leagues amongst true freshmen, first in touchdown passes, second in yards, second in completion percentage. He's got NC State driving right now. Just got a completion on a tight end screen to Justin Jolie. The pass interference, getting them, a good chunk of yardage right there. But, I think the reason why we should pay attention as he just gets another long completion. There's another freshman wide receiver. Is it 4? Who's a year 1-0 breaker. I got to see who that is. But Bailey, just another excellent throw across the middle there. One of the reasons why I think we need to pay attention to Bailey is because when we went and looked at the NFL teams that have quarterbacks starting for them that were not drafted in the first round, virtually all of them, save for Will Levis, started 4 years or more in the case of somebody like well, actually, no, we're trying to Cam Ward will have started 5 years. But those guys starting in the NFL, not drafted in the first round, quarterbacks, they played 4 years. And so here we are, CJ Bailey, not only is he starting, but he's, outside of the last 2 games, he's playing relatively well. Let's see his stats here real quick. Shoot, here we go. He's got 1,700 yards passing, 12 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. So, he is protecting the ball. And this is a guy that we didn't expect to start. So, at the very least, yeah. Does he have some things to work on? Sure. But he's a player that you should absolutely have rostered. And Matt's gone. So now I'm doing it on myself. We also wanted to watch this game so we could talk about Georgia Tech. On the Georgia Tech side, they keep bringing in Aaron Philo when they're in second and long, when they're in third and long. It's not Haynes King that they ask to get them out of those jams. It's Aaron Philo. Now, I found out about him a couple of weeks ago, but I guess Aaron Philo broke all of Trevor Lawrence's records in Georgia. Or Cartersville, Georgia. He broke all of his records. So not only do we need to pay attention to the true freshman Cedric Bailey, we need to pay attention to Aaron Philo. He should be the starter next year when Haynes King is gone. Are you still going to have Eric Singleton? Yes. Are you still going to have Jamal Haynes? Maybe. But he's a player that I would want to pay attention to. Now, he shouldn't be rostered. He should still be there out on the waiver wire. But click the star on his name and take a look at Aaron Philo. Here we are with NC State, 3rd and 4, 147 left. Let's see what CJ Bailey does here. He's got 4 wide receivers. I would pay attention to Joe Lee here in the slot. And I got to see who this freshman is who is broken year 1-0s. And here we go. Bailey taking off for the first down. He gets it. Bailey taking off, and he's in the end zone for the touchdown. So he can do a lot of things well. He can get out of trouble. He can throw. That's probably a bad play-by-play there. But there we saw on that drive, CJ Bailey, long completion, getting some screens, getting in rhythm. Here he gets pressure, takes off, gets the touchdown. And he played high-level high school football at Chaminade Medina. I don't know how to say the name. There with Jeremiah Smith in Florida. So we like CJ Bailey, but I like Aaron Philo too. I want to see Aaron Philo in this game just as much as I want to see CJ Bailey.
So Chaminade Madonna, I believe.
Chaminade Madonna. Okay. I didn't realize that you were gone.
Yeah, I had to pop off for a second. My son needed something. My bad. Yeah, that was a nice run by Bailey there for a touchdown.
So NC State has a freshman that has broken year 1-0 threshold, and I'm trying to see who it is.
Yeah, I was trying to pull that up.
I should just pull up the graphic. It is Terrell Anderson. Terrell Anderson. Let's see.
Oh, come on.
I'm going to see how he broke it. 13 receptions, 153 yards. So, yeah, he's well over our minimum thresholds for the year 1-0 theory.
Yeah.
CJ Bailey is him. Martin says CJ Bailey is him indeed. Definitely a player that you should have rostered. Is he better than Dylan Raiola? I mean, time will tell. The thing is, people tend to stick to those 24/7 and on 3 rankings for a long time.
Yeah.
And so we'll see if CJ Bailey can surpass Dylan Raiola.
The only reason I would say no right now is I don't think just from the pure quarterback position, he is better than what Dylan Raiola does. He's definitely a much better athlete, and I think just with what we just saw, I mean, it wasn't like a super impressive run, but still, Dylan Raiola is not able to do what CJ Bailey just did to score that touchdown against Georgia Tech. So if Bailey can kind of figure out the finer points of the quarterback position, which could come with time. I mean, Dylan Raiola again comes from an NFL family, has gotten the best, private quarterback coaching all his life and everything. He's got a little bit of a head start over CJ Bailey. So it's not to say that he couldn't get there. I would say right now, if you were to say one of them were to get to the NFL, I would still lean Dylan Raiola just because of what he does from just the pure quarterback. I haven't watched every snap CJ Bailey's taken. I've watched a lot of Dylan Raiola's games. Man, some of the throws he makes are Sunday throws. I don't know that I've seen a lot of those out of Bailey so far this season. Like, he had in his very first game had a frozen rope over a linebacker to like the side of the field, right to like the back shoulder of his wide receiver. Because like it was just a perfect throw. It was like, did they just get an interception?
Aaron Philo may have thrown an interception. We're trying to see if the ball hit the ground. But go ahead, finish your point, Matthew.
I have not seen Bailey make those throws yet. So again, it's not saying that he can't do it, but I mean, for Dylan Raiola to step on the field as a true freshman and be making these throws, I think just has to, right now, gives me a little bit more confidence in him. I definitely think there's a lot of upside with Bailey. You cannot deny that. But right now, I would still, I think all of us will have Dylan Raiola ranked ahead CJ Bailey, and I think that's fair for right now. He dropped it. It hits the ground.
Yeah, it definitely hit the ground. So I just looked up Aaron Philo's high school stats. Have you ever looked at it?
No, I have.
Have you ever looked at it?
No.
He threw for 4,500 yards in 3 of his seasons. 4,500 yards in 3 of his seasons. In his freshman year, he just threw for 200. Sophomore, 4,500. Junior, 4,500. Senior, 4,500. He threw for 13,000 yards in high school.
That's extremely
I'm telling
impressive.
you, man, we're watching here for CJ Bailey, but Aaron Philo, who just almost threw that interception, we got to pay attention to him too. I got to get him in my rankings.
We talked about him on College Fantasy Tonight, whatever that was, a couple weekends. And you got it. Like the thing,
we did.
He ran a little bit in that game too. We talked about it. We've seen Georgia Tech has made Haynes King into now. Granted, a lot of that's been because of his rushing, but still, they've made him into a fantasy asset. So there's no saying that he can't be. I cannot. Is it? Oh my God, who is the head coach of Georgia Tech right now?
I don't know. It's not Collins anymore. It's not.
That's who's stuck in my head, and I know that's not who it is.
I have no idea.
I cannot remember for life of me either who it is. But like he's had Georgia Tech. He's been good They've been good the past couple of years. So yeah, I think you have to.
Brent Key.
There we go. He's a guy, as we talked about on the College Fantasy Tonight show, he's a guy that I would watch list. And if you're in a league, like I know Austin's in a bunch of them, I think I'm only in one that allows unlimited waivers. Like you cannot tell me you don't have players at this point you can drop. I'd probably drop someone and just add Philo to my roster just to have him, just to see what happens.
And you know that he has a strong arm just because of the throws that he attempts, And I remember in that Miami game, they had like what's funny is they would bring him in as a pinch hitter. Like, oh, it's 3rd and 17. Hey, Aaron, can you get us out of this? And he would. And he would. 3rd and 17. There was a really long third down in that Miami game. He's like, yeah, I got this, guys. We need to get Aaron Philo. Look, and there's Haynes King, and Haynes King getting the first down there. But it seems like they are starting to play Philo even more. The only time they're having King in is when he's going to be running the ball. They're starting, that's what happens late in the season is these freshmen, these underclassmen, they end up getting more and more playing time. And here's Haynes King right back on the sideline. So Philo is essentially starting this game. We've got 2 true freshmen starting this game. This is exciting. We're watching, potentially a premier 2025 matchup between 2 emerging freshman quarterbacks.
Yeah, I was really hoping we had Philo in the
We don't have him in the player pool. I just looked at it.
Oh, I was just talking about in the athletic comparison, everything, see if maybe Matt or David were able to track his arm velo to kind of see if we could compare it to something, but he's not in there. So, which I guess makes sense because then we talk about, he was like, what was he? Was he do you know off the top of your head, was he a 2-star, 3-star?
No, I'll look it up in here in a second. I'm trying to tell Colin to add him to the rankings.
I'm pulling him up right now. He was he's a 3-star out of Bogart, Georgia.
Yeah, he broke. You didn't hear me say this before, but he broke all of Trevor Lawrence's records.
Well, it's funny that you said that's what I was about to say. I mean, so he threw for, you said 4,500 yards, just like, let's just say a flat 4,500 yards for 3 seasons. So I mean, what was that, 13.5? Yeah.
13 something, yeah. It's not quite 14,000, but 13,000, over 13,000 yards passing.
Granted, because Julian Lewis plays in Georgia, if I'm not mistaken, who's going to Colorado. And all anybody has been talking about is how great this kid is because he threw for 10,000 yards during his time in high school. And we're talking about Aaron Philo, who threw for at least 3,000.
Julian Lewis is at Carrollton.
Yeah. Which is a big school in Georgia. They play some of the best. I can look up the strength of schedule stuff because I think that's a big deal when you.
So Julian Lewis has thrown for 10,054 yards. And so here Aaron Philo has thrown for almost 14,000. I mean, it looks like he started as a sophomore. 4,500 yards as a sophomore. And you can tell, by the throws that he's attempting. These are 17, 18-yard comebacks to the opposite hash that he's trying. Now, he almost threw an interception on that one. But he's still, there's not a lot of freshman quarterbacks trying those throws, and he's trying.
What I was going to say is, dang, I can't even get. Where'd you pull his stats from?
From Max Preps for Julian, both of them, Julian Lewis and Aaron Philo.
Aaron Philo?
Yeah, just do Aaron Philo high school stats. Here, I can share my screen. He almost had 14,000 yards. He had 13,922 yards. He was 78 yards away from 14,000 yards passing. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Support what it is that we're doing to try to grow college fantasy football. Go ahead, Matthew.
Oh, that's what it was. I was looking at the wrong. Wrong school. So he played for Prince Avenue Christian. Gotcha. No, what I was going to say is I guess the main thing, if you really want to put it this way, the main difference between him and Julian Lewis is Julian Lewis did technically reclassify. So, he is a junior doing this. He should be in the 2026 class, and he moved up to 2025.
So if we throw another, 3,000 yards, you might get to 13,000. Yeah.
Yeah. So here's the thing I will say for them, though. Prince Avenue Christian is playing in Georgia, a 30.4 strength of schedule. That's actually pretty impressive. Hey,
for Lewis or Philo?
That was for Aaron Philo. I will pull up Julian Lewis. So I imagine theirs was pretty good because playing at Carrollton, that was one of the top high schools in Georgia as it is. And I know they played a couple of the big schools during the like earlier in the year with ESPN, he was on TV because they were playing some of the high end schools. So I imagine his strength of schedule was probably pretty good, but I'll find it here in a second and we can.
Here we are at the end of the first quarter. NC State 7, Georgia State 7. CJ Bailey is 4 for 7, 31 yards. 1 touchdown on a shovel pass that they're calling an interception, I guess. It's really I don't know if was that interception or a fumble. Anyway, they're calling that a fumble. He also has 16 yards rushing, that 1 touchdown. Dakari Collins has 1 reception for 14 yards. Hollywood Smothers, 1 reception for 8 yards. Kevin Concepcion, hopefully you didn't start him in the playoffs. 1 reception for 6 yards. And Justin Jolie, who I am starting, he has 1 reception for 3 yards. Georgia Tech is going to have the ball to start this second half. They're going to get it to Jamal Haynes. Jamal Haynes, super efficient running back. He's going to be one of those day 3 guys that is like Bucky Irving. A scat back who's going to be a compliment to an NFL, an NFL running back committee.
Julian Lewis played a 33.6 strength of schedule, which was 5th in the entire nation. Behind teams like Bishop Gorman, Duncanville. It actually doesn't have who the top 2 teams are, but I mean, he played the best of us. They're 11-0.
Conclusion to Aaron Philo, not only did he throw for 14,000 yards, he did it against a difficult schedule.
Yeah, fairly difficult schedule, at least from Georgia's ratings. Anything. So typically, from what we've found out from doing all this stuff and looking in the strength of schedule, typically anything over 30 means you're playing really good competition. He was at a 30.6. So, I mean, he's just over that, like, you're playing good competition. So for him to be able to do that again, Georgia, one of the states in the United States that has good high school competition. I mean, you talk about with California, Florida, Texas as some of the best in the nation. Georgia is in that group as well. And then, like I said, Carrollton, though, with Julian Lewis, got to give him some credit there. Ranked as one of the best in the entire nation, sitting there as the number 5 school. I was trying to pull up who the top one was, but it's not. I don't know why they wouldn't have the top school up here. But Duncanville, which is where I just mentioned earlier, so Kevin Sperry flipped from Oklahoma to Florida State. He plays at I think Keelan Russell, who Austin mentioned, plays at Duncanville. So I mean, and he has the number 3 team in the nation in high school right now. So
we're gonna get a 3rd and 10 here from Philo, so he's gonna have to throw the ball. Let's see what he does. They're at the NC State 35. It's 30 something. So let's see what he gets done here. They're in the shotgun. They've got 5 wide. They've got a trips down at the to the boundary. Tight end going in motion, and they're going to run Philo on the quarterback draw and nearly gets it, but he gets just about 6, and so it's going to be 4th down. Let's see if they kick the field goal or go for it. It is 7-7, 12:46 left in this game between NC State and Georgia Tech, and Philo's going to limp off. Looks like they take a timeout, an injury timeout for Philo to limp off, so let's see if they actually go for it here. Martin asks, where are we at with Eric Singleton? Does he stay at Georgia Tech next season? I think that Eric Singleton either goes to the NFL or transfers to another team. Because how many teams could use a stretch wide receiver who can get deep? Just about every single team in the country. He could be playing with Nico Iamaleava at Tennessee. He could be playing with DJ Lagway at Florida. He could be playing with Dylan Royola. He could be playing with, there's a lot of options out there. I mean, I don't think Philo's bad, but if Singleton is looking towards his NFL projection, it would make sense to do what Evan Stewart did this past season and transfer out, try to get to a more explosive offense.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we have him as like a 93rd percentile athlete. I mean, he's good. If he can get to a team that, which again, maybe they will air it out more with Philo there. I think they've tailored the offense to what they thought they were going to have in Haynes King, who is not the most accomplished passer. Obviously, Philo brings a different aspect to the offense there. But if he were to go to, say, a Tennessee, I mean, Oregon's losing a lot too. I know we talked last night. Maybe Evan Stewart comes back. If he doesn't, that room opens wide up. I mean, Texas's room is kind of wide open. Who else will be sitting up there with the top offenses? I mean, you mentioned Florida. I don't know. This would be a top offense.
I'm just thinking some of the top quarterbacks. Like who would he want to play with?
why not stay in state and go to Georgia and give yourself a chance, at least go there and do something. If Beck stays or if they go to the transfer portal and bring somebody in, I mean, you can't tell me he's not the fastest player on Georgia's roster right now if he were to go over there. So I think it would probably be better for him. He's having a good year, but if he could transfer up to one of those better schools and then have even just a 600-700 yard receiving year, I think he would easily increase his draft capital with the kind of athlete and everything he is. Did he come back in, by the way? Because he got hurt on that first drive. I did not see if he actually came back in.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure. We'll check here. We will check here.
If I were him, I would transfer. I mean, I don't know if we can call Mike Valerie again like we did last night. I don't know where like the mock drafts and everything have Singleton right now. I know him and Corey are pretty plugged into that to see if maybe he's getting a lot of buzz or not. Singleton just took a rush. Okay, thank you, Martin. So he did come back in. See, I don't know how many mock draft databases are projecting him at any point in time. I really don't know what I would project his draft capital to be right now. So for me, if you were asking me in this moment,
I don't think his is anywhere. I can look it up. I can look it up.
Okay, yeah, I would transfer
right here
if I were him. I'm trying to think of like I mean, the only fear I would have with Georgia is if Beck goes to the NFL, like what are you leaning? I mean, do we really think Gunnar Stockton? I actually really like.
He's essentially nowhere. Like I'm scrolling down to pick 405. Jaden Gibson, Dominic Lovett, and I have not seen Tobias Merriweather. Xavier Thomas. Like I'm still scrolling down. But the thing is I feel skeptical about some of these mock draft databases because these people don't watch college football. They don't know who's good.
That's fair.
They really don't know who's good.
I mean, where like he would be.
Georgia Tech gets the 3 points, so it's going to be 10-7. Georgia Tech 12, 29 left in the second.
So this team tried to bring in now I think Singleton is better than the player that I'm going to now compare him to, but they tried to bring in a like down the field threat guy who could stretch defenses. Now he was from this place. It has not worked out at all. And this team could use wide receivers. You have any guess on who this team is? They've got a good quarterback with a big arm. They just don't really use it.
They don't. Okay, hold on. If you can like just talk for a little bit,
yes,
I'll tell you who it is.
Okay, you tell me who it is. I'm looking at. I'm just looking at. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, what are you looking at?
Oh, I was looking at different teams that I think who could use a playmaker like Eric Singleton.
Penn State.
Yes, correct. Yeah, they brought in Julian Fleming, and it has not worked out at all. Like, if Singleton could go there and Alar could throw the like, there's so many places. I think if I'm really thinking about this, I think it was the first school you mentioned. I think Tennessee would actually be the best spot for him with the way that they seem to be.
I mean, he could be Jalen Hyatt. That's what we're saying. Like he could be a Jalen Hyatt level receiver for Tennessee if they wanted to use him that way.
I think the only big fear you'll have to have with that is I think from what I've seen now, he's gotten better in the back half of this part of the season, but I still think he's struggling to throw the deep ball in Nico. So like, I wonder if that would help Singleton a ton, but yeah, I mean, I think that'd be a great fit for him. He's going to be one of the guys to watch. I think at this point,
he would be probably the number one wide receiver in the transfer portal, unless you had somebody like, I don't know, like, I did a whole chart of guys who could enter the transfer portal. Let's see who was on that list.
I would.
All right, here are my wide receivers who could enter no, he would not be number one. He would probably be number 3. These are the guys that I think could enter the transfer portal after the season. Go ahead and follow us on Instagram if you aren't, because we add some of this stuff. Zachariah Branch, Elike Mayor, if he stays. Now, I see Elike Mayor on this consensus big board. He is at number 57. They're calling him basically a second-round pick. If he's going to be a second-round pick, I don't think that he comes back. So Elike Mayor, Devontae Ross at Troy, who's tearing it up. Even has had good games against Power 5 competition, Power 4 competition. Deuce Robinson. Now, that might change given that Jade Mayava is starting for USC now. Adam Randall at Clemson. There's no way Adam Randall's going back with the emergence of Bryant Wesco, TJ Moore. If Antonio Williams goes back, which I don't think that he will, there's no way that Adam Randall goes back to Clemson. Your boy Brandon Inniss, Matthew, at Ohio State. Where could Brandon Inniss end up? Where is Brandon Inniss from? We can talk about that. You could let me know where he's from.
Florida.
He's
from Florida.
He's from Florida?
Well,
Ooh,
I don't know where he played in Florida. I don't know if he's actually from Florida. He played at for the life of me now, I'm not going to be able to remember the school, but it's a big. He was like one of the best players for one of the better schools. I don't think it was Chaminade.
They'll be the number 2. I mean, they brought in Elijah Badger. Could you put in, Brandon Ennis there in the slot? Well, Trey Wilson has the slot, but Brandon Ennis could find. Oh my goodness, CJ Bailey just getting the pass batted down.
American Heritage. He is from.
He played quarterback.
He is from Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
He played quarterback in American Heritage.
No,
Brandon Ennis.
Yes. He had to.
He had to.
Yeah, he had to. He wasn't like
right.
Not an actual quarterback. He had to. Yeah, he's because he's that good of an athlete. Yeah, he's.
Hakeem Williams could enter the transfer portal. Jaden Greathouse, Adrian Norton, who's having a great season for Akron. Jerrion Dickey at Oregon, who's not done anything in 2 years now. I think we could see him. I thought Jerrion Dickey was going to be like the next AJ Brown. I mean, I got a lot of.
You loved yourself some. So you loved.
I do. I like those big players. I like size. So if Eric Singleton entered the transfer portal, amongst these guys that we're talking about, I think he would probably be. And I take that back. He might be the number 1. He might be the number, because I'd rather have Eric Singleton than Zachariah Branch, and they're similar style players, except Branch is only used near the line of scrimmage, but. Eric Singleton is probably right there as far as speed goes.
Yeah, I mean, he's been more proven so far, and I think you could say in what you would think is a less efficient offense than USC with what Zachariah Branch has been. And now, again, he had one of his better games of his career once Jaden Maiava jumped in at quarterback, and we saw how good Jacob DeJesus was for UNLV in that slot position. So maybe we finally get to see more realized potential for Zachariah Branch over the next couple of weeks with Maiava in at quarterback.
And who said that Jaden Maiava was the best quarterback on that team? Jaden Maiava, one of the better quarterbacks in the country. He never left my top 30. Never left my top 30 quarterback. My quarterback rankings. Available at campuscan.com. Like the video, support what it is that we're trying to do to grow the college fantasy football game. CJ Bailey not looking good on that last drive, having a pass batted down in his face. Georgia Tech punts, NC State punts. Georgia Tech is going to have the ball. Interesting to me, where we've seen in games past, it's been Haynes King and then Aaron Philo is subbing in. Today, it's really Aaron Philo who's starting and Haynes King who's subbing in. So we're seeing a passing of the torch between Philo and King. If you weren't around earlier, Philo, 14,000 yards passing in Georgia in high school, broke a lot of Trevor Lawrence's records in high school. A guy who can really sling the ball around, a guy that we need to get in our rankings here at campuscanton.com.
So, I mean, Martin asks, I should think this is Micah. If Micah Hudson were to enter the portal, you choose him or Singleton. I know which way you're going. But
I would take Singleton. I would take Singleton 100%. Yeah.
I think you'd have to at this point. I mean, I still think Micah Hudson has a chance to be really good, but I think you do. I know he came into the year with the injury, but I do think you kind of have to question. He went into a fairly weak wide receiver room, and he's just not really done anything. And I think that's got to worry you a little bit, at least with the pedigree that he was coming. I'm almost positive he's Texas Tech's highest rated recruit ever. And he's not really he's not been able to capitalize on it.
I'm trying to think of who is dominating for Tech. Is Josh Kelly?
Yeah. It's
Josh Kelly there is kind of dominating. And Coy Eakin. And those, I mean, Micah Hudson, man, you got to be able to beat out Josh Kelly and Coy Eakin. No offense to those two. And you know what? So there were a couple of things that, you would think would elevate Micah Hudson's profile. Not only the fact that he's, a 5-star wide receiver going to Texas Tech. He could have gone anywhere. It's also that, let's not forget, Zach Kitley is the offensive coordinator there. Zach Kitley, explosive numbers at Western Kentucky with Bailey Zappi, Jarrett Stearns. Like, we're waiting for the 2.0 version of that offense, which we haven't gotten just yet. But that's what we would expect. But we haven't gotten it.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be, yeah, as Martin said in the chat, Michael Hudson. Yeah, it's
Michael. That's right, Michael Hudson. That's right, Coach.
It's not been great. I mean, yeah, I mean, you're looking at so far this year, 8 receptions for 123 yards. Like, he's broke year 1 zeros, but it's not been a great freshman start to the campaign. Again, this is a guy that was not even just by us, but by other services talked about is like right there with Jeremiah Smith. And I think you've seen a massive difference between not just him, but like a guy he was rated over in Ryan Williams, who's gone into, again, both those guys gone into deeper, more competitive wide receiver rooms and have established themselves as the best wide receivers in the country. And again, I want to give Hudson some leeway because he did come into spring with the knee injury, and that supposedly kind of extended some into the start of the year. But still, I mean, we're talking about he's supposedly been healthy, and you go back over the past couple weeks, 0 receptions, 2, 1. Like, he's just not asserting himself at all. So
I see Steve asked in the chat. He says, "Are we excited for Indiana versus Ohio State?" Listen, I was looking at PFF grades today. Do you know who the second rated passer is for PFF?
it's Curtis Rourke.
It's Curtis Rourke. It is Curtis Rourke. Yeah. How can we be 1 year too late on Curtis Rourke? How could he go from Ohio, where we thought he was going to ball out with who was the wide receiver? Who was the wide receiver that we were drafting from Ohio last year?
Oh, I don't know. Mox. If Mox,
I'm gonna go see. Exactly Wigloose, Sam Wigloose.
Yeah.
Sam Wigloose.
Weirdly enough, from Ohio State, he was a walk-on at Ohio State and went to Ohio. Yeah.
Yes. And we were 1 year too late. He needed Kirk Signetti. He needed Elijah Surratt. He needed Donovan. Who's the wide receiver who converted to the quarterback who converted to wide receiver?
Was it Donovan McCauley?
Donovan McCauley. Hold on, let me look at Indiana stats. Donovan McCauley's not even really playing. It's Elijah Surratt, Omar Cooper. Elijah Surratt has 685 yards. Miles Price. But speaking of Zach Kitley,
yeah,
we once drafted Miles Price there at Texas Tech because he was the next slot wide receiver for Zach Kitley. That's funny. Miles Price. You know how much we overdrafted Miles Price?
Oh yeah, I've
what, 2 years ago? Yep. 2 years ago, we overdrafted Miles Price. We thought he was going to put up 2,000 yards receiving, just like Zaire Stearns did at Western Kentucky. He was the slot wide receiver there for Texas Tech.
52.5 is the over under. I think I would agree with you, Steve. I'd probably take the under. I don't know, man. I have a hard time figuring out what I think about this game because, like, Ohio State now is just bleeding offensive linemen. I mean, they just lost their center.
Seth Hennigan. They lost Seth Hennigan. My close personal friend, John Hennigan.
Seth Hennigan is a quarterback for Memphis.
Oh, the quarterback for Memphis. McLaughlin.
Yeah, McLaughlin.
John McLaughlin, my close personal friend, who I met once.
And they obviously lost Smith, or their left tackle, earlier in the year. So, like, that offensive line struggling. They haven't been able to get the run game going. You know, I know Mike Valerie just is doing everything he can to spread this Will Howard propaganda. I do not. I think Will Howard's been fine. Like, I think that's the best way to describe him. He's been fine.
Right.
But the last time this defense saw a good offense was Oregon, and they torched that secondary. Now, granted, I don't think Indiana has an Evan Stewart type wide receiver on their roster that could do to Denzel Burke what Evan Stewart did. But I don't know this is just going to be an easy Ohio State runs away with this. The only reason I would be afraid to take the under, Steve, is I could see this turning into a shootout where all of a sudden because I think Indiana can keep up with Ohio State, like, scoring wise. So if both these teams just start going score for score, then I mean, I think it could easily go over. I mean, Steve says McCord was fine. You're right. Like, McCord at this point had better stats than Will Howard. So again, Will Howard he's fine. Like, he's not been great. He's not been bad. He's just been fine. Like, I think the argument a lot of the Will Howard folks made when he transferred to Ohio State, which, again, I think was more of just like a lack of options in the portal at the time he landed with Ohio State and they needed somebody. All the talk was he had nobody at Kansas State. So once he got to Ohio State in this loaded wide receiver room, he was going to do all this damage. He's been fine. Like, that's just what he's been. And that's just not a shot at him. He's been fine. They're 9-1. Like, he's not losing games. They're 9-1, but he's not been this revelation I think people thought he was going to be.
Aaron Philo has Georgia Tech down to the NC State 24-yard line. It's going to be facing a 3rd and 3 from the, let's call it the 16, 15, something like that. Philo converting a 2nd and 11 on long on a crosser to Avery Boyd early on this drive. I'm sitting here thinking that we should be looking at, say, Cedric Bailey. Maybe we should be looking at Aaron Philo as they sub out Philo for Haynes King now that they're in the red zone here on the 3rd and 3. And, of course, we expect the action. And then Haynes King is sacked in the backfield.
Would you advise selling your Micah Hudson shares?
Oh, 100%, man. 100%. Because this, I mean, yes, I would. I was never a fan of Micah Hudson.
Yeah. I don't know.
What could you get for him? Would you take a 3rd round pick for Micah Hudson?
Man, I don't know. That's tough. It's such a loss of value.
You
took him in the 1st round last year.
You took him probably like top 6 overall.
Yeah, I would assume. No, I mean, I think he probably dropped some because we had already known and established that it was an injury, and at least most of us here at the network. I remember Moxley
week 13. Well, let's stop blaming it on a knee injury.
No. I'm saying when you drafted him. No, I'm saying when you drafted him, they might not have drafted him at 6 last year. Now I think about it, because there was a lot of us talking about, like, we were actually worried about that knee injury. We started to drop him down our rankings a little bit because of the knee injury. So he probably went in the 1st round, but I don't know if they took him that high. But I don't know that I would. How much time does Josh Kelly have left? Let me find out what this wide receiver room looks like. I don't know. Maybe Mike Hudson has a chance to be the number one.
Listen, he has the chance to be the number 1 now. Like, he's not. What are Micah Hudson's stats?
He's 8 for 120, 8 for 128, I think is what it is. It's not good. 8
catches for 120. It's not good.
Yeah, it's not good.
He has him in CFF keeper not. Oh, in straight CFF, you shouldn't have Micah Hudson rostered.
Yeah. In CFF, I'm probably
in straight CFF. Oh, come on, Steve. The only reason we would have Micah Hudson rostered if it was in a C2C league. I don't even know if I would have him rostered in a CFF Dynasty league.
So, if you're looking for the only reason I would keep him, that room actually really clears out after this year. A lot of those guys, McCray, Kelly, Douglas, Boyd, all are gone. They have no eligibility left. So you're looking at the only guy who's been productive for them this year, Coy Eakin. He'll be coming back. He'll have 2 years left of eligibility. So you could argue that Micah Hudson could be there as like the one. Oh, so no ad drop. So that's why he has. And that makes sense, Steve. So the only reason I would debate on holding on to him is there's a realistic shot if he doesn't enter the portal that he's going to be the 1 or the 2 for Texas Tech next year. They've definitely come back on this year. We were talking earlier in this year, maybe Kitley being fired. I don't think that happens now. Texas Tech has looked much better toward the back end of this season. So I could see a reason to believe in Micah Hudson going into year 2. So it really, for me, just depends on what you can get for him, Steve. I mean, if you could get like a 2nd round pick, I probably feel good about doing that. I like the top end of this freshman class. I like some of the players that are likely going to be available as supplemental players that you could probably get a player that I would feel good about replacing Micah Hudson's value. It would be hard for me to trade a 3rd. Like, it would really be hard for me to accept that back for Micah Hudson, because I still think he's got a shot to do something. But you're
don't take a 3rd. Next year he'll be worth absolutely nothing, and you can drop him.
Debatable.
And then you will not have gotten your 3rd. You will not have gotten your 3rd.
Debatable.
CJ Bailey 4 for 9, 31 yards. Aaron Philo 6 for 9, 50 yards. He also has 10 yards rushing. Battle of true freshman quarterbacks. All right, Matthew. I think I'm going to watch this second half and the rest of this game from my bed. We talked about, go ahead and rewind back to the beginning. We talked about all the implications of Bryce Underwood flipping his commitment to Michigan. Austin was there to break that down for us. We will be back on Saturday for the College Fantasy pregame show at 10 a.m. You can join us then if you are watching this one after we went live. Go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel. All right, y'all. Peace.